Hello and welcome to the MES tool release highlights of spring 2025. My name is 𝗙𝗵𝗿𝗀𝗲𝗄. I'm a software engineer at MES, and today I will present you the new version of the MES quality commander, MQC, quality, always up to date. I will show you the highlights of the new version 8.1, which are: collect data directly from JFrog Artifactory. Do you use JFrog Artifactory as a long-term storage for your work products? Configure a MQC DataSource to access the report files directly from the JFrog Artifactory. Select your project and repositories, filter and preview files, and keep your MQC project up to date by automatically monitoring for new, modified, or deleted files. Let's have a look in such a JFrog Artifactory. In this case, we have one example project with two repositories. One of those repositories contains the reports in folders by dates, which in this example contains static reports, which are for different artifacts, and dynamic analysis also for different artifacts. And another repository which contains all these data as zip files if you don't want to upload all these reports directly or individually to JFrog. And both of these variants work out of the box with MQC, and you can import these files as if they were on your local file system directly from JFrog. For this, first you need to create an identity token, which you can do in your profile. And after creating such an identity token, this can be used in MQC to connect to the JFrog API. In MQC, we have file readers that read these files. In this example, we have an MXM report and we have mtest reports, which we want to read. And we have API connectors that can download these files and access these files from remote locations. When we add a new data location, you can select API and then select the JFrog Artifactory Artifacts API connector. Here you have to provide the URL of the Artifactory repository. In this case, this is a trial account and the previously created identity token. After both are provided, the projects that are available for the user of the identity token are selectable and the repositories belonging to that repository. After selecting the project and the repository, we can further filter the files that are in the remote JFrog Artifactory with file filters and preview the files in this example, in this right view. For example, if we filter by static analysis, we will only see the static analysis and the dynamic analysis folders are excluded. When we switch to the zip repository, we will see the zip files that are in that repository. For this example, we can go back to our default repository. Optionally, you can check the checkbox to check for deleted files while monitoring. This is useful if you are not only adding new files, but also deleting existing files. If you don't delete files, it is recommended to not enable this checkbox because the monitoring is a bit slower with this checkbox enabled. And with this data location added, we can create our example project. After the project is created, we see that it is the same as if the data location would have been the local one. So with this, you can easily load your artifacts directly from JFrog without any further steps. The next highlight of our new version of the MES Quality Commander is a focus on your key project timeframes with milestone-based views. Use configured milestones as timeframes to focus your view, in addition to the existing date range options of weeks, months, years, and manual dates. In the top of MQC, you can see a date range selection. This allows you to filter specific date ranges of MQC. Previously, it was only possible to filter for everything. for weeks or month, or a specific date range you want to manually define. But of course, in most projects, you will define milestones. And milestones are not just the due date of a specific date, but also the time leading up to this date of the milestone. With the date range selection for milestones, it's very easy to have a look at the specific process in a milestone, or even multiple milestones by adding 2 milestones together, and have a quick look on this. And this works not only in the dashboard, but every other view, be it quality, data, data details, or availability. So you can have a very nice selection of a date range based on which milestones you have configured. Another highlight of our new version is that you can see the changes in your project in the way you need to. Use milestones as diff base to see changes since the end of the last milestone. This allows you to see what progress has been made in a milestone period. And by linking the date range selection, that was a highlight before, via option to the diff base, you only need to change the date range to get the corresponding diff view. So in MQC, by switching the view to diff, you can see per default the diffs between revisions. So as you can see here is the change or the diff from one revision to the next, what has changed from one day to another day, or in this case, revisions that are weekly. You can also select different diff bases which are not available here since we haven't configured them. In the settings, there is now the ability to configure different diff ranges or diff bases. One would be, for example, a month, and we can also configure diff for milestones. After they have been configured, they appear in the top selection and can be easily changed. For example, if I switch to month, I can now see the diff starting from the months. So there are a diff comparison to the end of the last month to the next month. So here a new month begins, and I see the changes that happened between the last day of the month and the new day, and the 4th and the 4th of 4th. So it's accumulating pretty much. And the comparison from the last day of a month is still to the last day of the previous month. I can also go to the milestone diff, where I can now see the diff from the starting of a milestone to the end of a milestone. So I see directly what progress in a milestone period happened, and not between the revisions, but directly what has changed in one milestone. I can maybe change this to see everything, so you can see it over the whole project. So even here, we have some deteriorations even in the last milestone. By checking this checkbox, we can link the diff base to the date range selection. By default, if you have selected everything as a date range, you will get the revision diff base. But if you switch, for example, now to month, then we see the diff of that month. So by switching the month, we can go to another month, in this case September, and we see the diff compared to the end of the last month here. And by switching to milestones, we see the diff inside one milestone. One example would be this milestone in this milestone set. So we here see directly the diff base, which is quite nice to have it directly related. If you select a milestone where you haven't enabled the diff base, you will get a warning that the diff base is not enabled, and you will get the fallback to revision diff. These are the highlights of MES Quality Commander 8.1. And if you would like more information, go to model-engineers.com, and you will find all the release notes of our MQC there. And if you want to approach us for an evaluation, you can contact us there. Thank you very much for listening, and see you next time.